I'm here with Ramita Anand, a teacher, an educational mentor, and the founder of Elevate RA, an educational mentoring service working with pre-adolescent girls. Now, I'm going to start by telling you that this throws me every time, but I am sitting in Cleveland, Ohio on Thursday night. And where are you?
I'm in Singapore on a Friday morning.
Yes. So baffling to me. I don't know how that works. It's so bizarre to me. Tell me, what is unique about girls from that stage of 9 to 13 that we don't really know about?
Well, it's not that we don't know about it. I think we all know.
We as moms are forewarned.
Yeah, we are. And I think if you remember that awkward stage of your own life, when you just become an adolescent young girl, things are changing all over, your body, your surroundings, your friendships. Some kids are going from primary school and being in a comfortable place with their teachers and having the same classrooms all the time with the same kids to middle school. And some are going to high school, depending on where you live. And I think the transition that's happening around you socially, things that are happening to you emotionally, they become quite they become quite acute, and kids are aware, but they're confused. They're not always sure why they feel the way they do. So I think the mood swings, the friendship concerns, where you are in your family, you want to assert your independence, but you're not as big as you think you are, but you really want to be that person. And all of these can cause all sorts of behaviors that can, confuse parents and throw them from their otherwise totally sweet, innocent young girl, at times becoming someone they don't almost recognize.
Yeah, it's the beginning of everything changing, right? It's like a shock to the system. So what did you see firsthand? And you were teaching, and you just started to see these patterns happening. So what were the stories that you saw firsthand that led you to start Elevate RA and to focus on, in particular, on this age group?
Okay, so my sort of mission in creating Elevate RA is kind of a trifold amalgamation of my experiences. So, I think a lot of it does resonate from when I was a 13-year-old girl and I faced my first real hardship in life. I lost my mum to cancer, and my mum was my mentor. My mum was my life. She was the sort of foundation of our home. So I think just navigating the teen years without her was a mission for me and my family. So that's one side of my story. The second side of it, as an adult, when I became a teacher, it didn't matter where I was teaching, whether I was teaching in Vancouver, which is where I'm from, whether I was teaching in London, which is where I lived, or then when we lived in New York, the story was always the same. As soon as kids get into this sort of pre-adolescent stage, something happens to their security levels and their confidence levels drop massively. And if they aren't guided, or if they aren't sort of mentored or lifted in a way, that I think that lots of them can lose their way. And it was this, it doesn't matter how bright they are, it doesn't matter what they're doing extracurricularly, they could be the captain of everything. Self-doubt seemed to creep in at this age, undoubtedly, with every child. And some kids were able to navigate it better, but lots of girls in particular can find themselves losing their way in that and having this sort of insecurity level go to a whole new place. And I think the introduction of social media didn't help that phase for teen girls. I think that's created a greater level of insecurity, not less, if anything. So that's really what I witnessed. And then being a mom myself and raising my own teen girl and my son who has learning differences, I started to really worry about children who, especially girls in their teen years, with any kind of learning difference, and how that might really plummet their self-worth.
It's a little bit of that time where I think girls start saying, I'm not good at math. And that's like that fixed mindset that says, I am forever not good at math. And you talk about how if you can pivot to think of yourself, well, maybe right now you're not so good, but why couldn't you be good? And here we talk about, I'm not good at math yet. Like it's not a never going to happen. Yeah. And so that's called growth mindset, right? And so how do you teach kids? How do you help them pivot from that I can't do it to I can't do it yet?
I think there's a few things. I think we talk a lot about the brain in my program. I try to use science. I think we can talk about positive quotes and the idea of believing in yourself in just a general conversational way. And it obviously depends on the age of the child. But I think the most effective way to show kids that your brain is a muscle and organ that grows and expands, and there are actual neurons and synapses that can connect when you teach it to, and that it's something you can learn. It's not something you're born with. It's something you can actually teach yourself. And I really get down on their level and I show them things I really couldn't do a week ago, and then I might have done it between the lesson I had now and then I did every single day. And look, I can almost touch my toes with my hands on the ground, like, you know, something as simple as that. But maths is a big one. You're absolutely right. I think the difficulty with girls seeing how quick sometimes their counterparts in the male world, this is a general stereotype, I'm not saying that all boys are better than maths, but they seem to be quicker at coming to the answers. Girls like to be more methodical, so they assume because they're not, their pace is slower, that they aren't as good at boys or other people in subjects like maths and science. So their self-doubt in that particular area becomes worse. But if you do practice questions and you become as quick as boys, then yes, you can. So there's a lot of proof, you know, and there's a lot of things on neuroplasticity about the brain. And I bring it down to those kinds of levels to show them that anything we do, you know, anything you want to change requires a bit of practice and commitment. And if, as long as you're willing to give that, then everything will come.
So is talking about how girls in particular are like, do you hit it head on? Do you say, like, I see your confidence wavering and I want you to know that practice will make a difference here?
Yeah, I think where I really like to start with girls is a place of strength. A really, really strong point is to acknowledge how much they already have going for them, how much of their confidence is built around their gymnastics or their singing or whatever it is that they already are so good at, to remind them of those incredible superpowers. But then to let them know as an adult who's sort of a neutral, you know, person who isn't going to judge, who isn't going to criticize, to share what they're worried about and what they wonder about, which is sort of the next part. So it's when I give them those opportunities to share and reflect honestly what they worry about, that then I can go in there to say, okay, so you're worried about this. Tell me why. Why do you not feel confident about your presentation skills in science? Why are you scared to show your classmates, you know, how good you are at baking? That's a superpower. You know, let's talk about where you're very good at and how actually baking is maths. Did you know that? And you know, little things like that can sort of really reinforce with the areas that they feel low on themselves for. So I try and find those little ins with their chat to try and get to know them a little bit better. And then, yes, then I will say, well, remember when you shared this with me, I want to show you this, and then let them see the other side. Because I think kids are hardwired to always look at the negative. You know, most of us as even adults possibly do that. But if you sort of flip it on its head and say, well, actually, this is what I see, we're both looking at the same thing. And that's when, you know, we get into empathy, perspective, and how you can change the whole outlook on something if you word it a certain way and you feed that message to your brain, not the one that you're thinking of right now.
That's really beautiful. That's true for all of us, right? Like, it's not what I see. What you see is not what I see. So you mentioned superpowers, which is a wonderful way to look at it. And I know that that's a big part of your program. And there are 5 keys that you talk about, 5 key ingredients to being a supergirl, to creating a supergirl. What are those?
Yeah, I often get asked, you know, like lots of parents say, is there a magic wand I can wave just to bring my daughter back? Yeah. Or, you know, I had one parent say, if I could just give her some vitamins, and that would be really great. So in my head, if I think about which things I'd put in, what minerals I'd put into one pill, one magic pill or one wand that I could wave for them, I think for me, the 5 key ingredients are confidence, emotional intelligence, resilience, kindness, and empathy. I think if we can give the girls all 5 of these skills, then we are setting them up to be the most passionate learners, the most motivated learners, and the kind of girls we want to be our future leaders, really.
Is there like an example you could give for something a parent could do to achieve each of those things? So, you know, I want my girls to have confidence. You just made it clear there's no magic wand. What do I do?
Okay, so yeah, I think a lot of that is language. You know, every time your child says, I'm no good at this, or I'm not joining that. I'll never make the team. There's a lot of things about, you can sort of look at my posters, but there's lots of growth mindset posters out there, which you can print out, laminate, have them up in the house that say, you can't do that yet. It's hard now. It won't be once you practice more, And so there's a little bit of that in terms of making sure that the language they're using around you is of a positive one, or you flip it around. But secondly, I think role modeling and confidence. If you're a very good runner as a parent, maybe you weren't when you were their age. Could you share that? Let them think, because a lot of kids feel like your parents are born this way, or that they're really good at their job because they're smart, but they weren't maybe always that smart. And I would share your failures, your success stories, or your hardship that got you to where you are. I think that is massive. I think having small steps and then saying, look, this is where you want to be. You're not confident yet, but mapping the way and making small little gradual sort of stairs or something, and then making it visual, saying, look, you've just made it to that point. Look, you've just made it to that point. You're on the B team now. Amazing. You're going to get onto the A team. Carry on. It can be like that if you make it very small and you break the steps down into realistic steps. I don't think you should, if your child's never played netball before, promise them that a little bit of practice will make them the captain. I think they've got to be realistic.
Netball? What's netball in America?
Oh, sorry. It's the very simplistic version of basketball. In the UK and Australia. It's not really played in Canada. And
okay, I'm going to share Lisa's question, because I think this is something that we suffer from so much when our girls are being bullied, when our children are being bullied. And, how do you have suggestions for what Lisa can do and what other people listening right now can do?
Gosh, that's such an important question. And I think validating their feelings is firstly the most important. I think many parents are solution orientated, and we just want to get them fixed. So we say, don't play with her anymore, or don't go near that child anymore, or you're off social media now, if that's where the bullying took place. I think what we really need to do in those moments, particularly when they're very raw, is allow students or children, or the time to accept those feelings, to sit with those feelings, to lean into those feelings, and really allow them on their terms to tell you how they're feeling. If they're saying, well, I feel like the stupidest person in class, or I'm never going to be liked by anybody, don't counter argue that. I think that's what we end up doing. We start, well, of course you're the most beautiful girl in the world. Everyone's going to love you. I think lots of parents, because we naturally, instinctively want to protect our dear ones. So I think giving them that space is really important, allowing them to process what they're going through, and just being there without any judgment, any criticism is probably my first step to that. And then to surround them with people that are championing them, So if this bullying is taking place at school, fill their evenings with aunts, uncles, grandparents, other friendships from their gymnastics classes or whoever, where those girls are going to really fill your child up with goodness. And every time something positive happens, hopefully they'll start to build and believe themselves a bit more on that, and realize it was their issue. It was the bully's issue, and that they've got insecurities which they feel better about by making you feel bad about yourself. And it's really not you at all.
I love what you said, the idea about having a friend outside of school. Like, I think that is like such a safety net, because they're gonna have trouble with their friendships, and they might even encounter a bullying situation. And if someone's outside of that environment, it can save you, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think variety and exposure to as many types of friendships out there in as many different areas is key. Absolutely.
Okay, well, so the other four were resilience, empathy, emotional intelligence, and kindness. So maybe
let's go back. Yeah. Okay. So resilience for me is really, I think really acknowledging and being honest with your children that you may not have experienced any hardship till this point in your life, but there's no way that life is going to come out without any real hardship. That it's a fact of life. You will be challenged in some place and some point in your development. So what I'd love for you to understand is that falling is okay. Don't be scared to fall. I want you to understand how you get up from that fall. And so giving them some ideas around having a plan B, looking at something that may have gone wrong, but how can it lead you to a different road to make something else come out of it, is something that I talk to girls a lot about. And you can start with something as simple like the weather ruined your outdoor picnic plans, and use that as an opportunity to say, right, we need a plan B, and plan B becomes almost a buzzword in the house that gets thrown around, and saying that we always need to be sure that we are okay with a plan B, and that disappointment won't break us. It will actually make us. So that would be my sort of first tip on resilience. And then, I obviously in my courses we use real life examples, people like Malala, who didn't even let something as a gunshot wound stop her from advocating for girls and education. So life throws things at us that are totally unexpected, and that's okay. You stick to your mission and do what you think is right and carry on. I think that's a really important thing. Empathy is another huge skill. I think what I find so fascinating is how so many leaders and top level managers are looking for these types of skills when they're hiring other leadership roles in their companies. And they say, oh, we'd love to have someone not just with IQ, but EQ. Yet we sort of look for that when they're adults, but it's something you can teach children. Why aren't we teaching them that when they're kids? So I think teaching empathy, perspective, putting yourself in other people's shoes, you don't have to understand it fully, but be able to allow people that opportunity to speak and allow them to share what they're thinking so that you learn. Obviously, these things can, exist when you're in diverse relationships or friendship groups, or when you travel, but I think it can happen in your day-to-day when you're watching the news, when you're reading a book. I think if you can get examples of how do you think that person felt when they were going through that? What do you think is happening in their family that would be different in our family? Why is that harder for this girl? Those types of questions are really important to ask. And kindness, I think there's a real difference between niceness and kindness. And of course, manners and being polite are important. But I think kindness, it stems from something that you're not looking for any kind of external validation for. You do it inherently. So making that difference clear to girls, saying, it's not good enough because you want your teachers to see you being kind. That's not kindness. I want you to be kind when nobody's watching, and it doesn't matter who can see this act. It's an act of kindness. It's something that we do to make the world a better place because it's contagious. It's something that we can role model to so many other people. So that's kind of my nutshell, my program.
Yeah, you did it quickly. That was great. That was really helpful. And I think the idea that we have the power to kind of just move their heads a little slightly to look at things a different way is really powerful. It doesn't have to solve the whole problem. It could just offer looking, showing, explaining, TV, media. It's all great ways to do that. That was really excellent. Okay. So you have a framework that you find helpful with the girls. It's KWP. Knowledge, wonders, and power. So tell us a little bit about that.
So it's a little bit like what I said initially about starting from a positive place. I think celebrating your child for who they are as they are is really key. Their uniqueness makes them special. That's why they're super girls in the way they are, right? You are Sue, I am Ramita. There are no two Sues out there. There are no two Ramitas out there. Maybe with the same name, but definitely not with the same superpowers. What you bring is unique, and I want you to understand that I love that about you. That's the thing that I want girls to really understand. Don't try and make yourself something you're not. Let's improve the things that you're worried about, but let's start from a place of positive. So your knowledge, what kind of things do you know about yourself? What are you self-aware about already? And I get parents involved in this as well, because I think often teen girls don't assume that their parents think the worst of them. So I think when they see that their children and their parents, the kids can see that their parents think all these great things about me or have all this knowledge about my strengths, that's a really powerful tool to shed some light on the child's insecurities. And then I work on what are all the wonders, because we're curious, and we should be. As teens, there's so much out there. There's so many new vocabulary words that we're trying to grapple with. So tell me, what are you wondering about? What are you worried about? Are you wondering about college at the age of 9? Really? You're scared of not getting into, the right schools at the age of 10? Wow, let's think about how many years we have before you have to apply to college. Let's break this down. Let's take this worry that you've got and how did it get there? Where did this conditioning come from? So I really try and unpack some of these concerns that we don't realize subconsciously exist on our children. I had a really gorgeous little girl who was so petite, the petitest thing I've ever seen. And one of her biggest wonders was, how am I ever going to lose my abs? How am I going to lose this flabby tummy? How am I going to get abs? And she was 11. and I thought, wow, you're worried about abs at 11. Okay, so let's talk about what an ab is. Do you know it's a muscle and what? And she said, well, I think I should be exercising, or maybe I should have more celery. And all of these questions start to come out. And I think using that as a framework, even parents may not be aware that this is the stuff that's going into their child's head through osmosis, through social conditioning, through the social external pressures that they seem to be under. So I use all of that over the course of the weeks to keep it in the back of my mind. So when we're doing our lessons, I navigate this stuff that they brought in their initial wonders and worries problem area that we talked about. And then at the very end, I hope what is a successful few weeks of the mentorship program to talk to them about how you can change your wonders and all the worries into your power. What kind of tools can we use to take all the stuff that you worried about when we first started the program, and how can we utilize our new tools belt that we've created over the last few weeks and remember that's your power, not something you should be scared of.
So what would you want parents to know? Like, you're working with the kids, but you're also working a little bit with the parents.
Yeah.
And you've taught these kids, and so you understand the parents. What do you wish parents knew?
That's a really good question. Even as a mum myself, sometimes I wish I could get inside the brain of my little girl and understand what is causing this self-doubt. All I see is this gorgeous child, and yet she's not feeling that way about herself. What is causing that? So I think what I wish parents to know is that your children are trying very hard, and they are not always feeling supported, even though you think you're being supported. I think what they need is you to love them unconditionally for who they are. I think if we can accept our kids and stop trying to go from, oh, wow, you got 80%. Next time, can you bring home 90%? I think maybe really make that 80% as something to celebrate, really make them feel good about that achievement. And then maybe if it comes from them and saying, Mom, yeah, I really, that was a B and I'm really proud of myself, but I think now I'm going to work for an A. If it comes from them, amazing, run with it. But we shouldn't put our expectations on them all the time. I think we're guilty of that. Hands up, me too. I'm one of those moms. You want for them everything that maybe you couldn't get, and you just want them to feel like they can do it all. But I think that weighs down on them a lot.
It's such a common conversation happening right now. Like, it really comes up in every conversation that we have with professionals that love the kid in front of you. Yes. and embrace that kid in front of you. And it really is helpful to think of it that way, because I think for so much of our lives as parents, we're like feeling like we've been given clay that we have to mold.
Yeah.
And then they get older, and that's not really our job.
It's so true. I think we held ourselves as parents to some standards that if our child comes out like this, and we parents have done a great job. But I think I read, and probably through the wonderful content that you gave me, that parenting out of love is very different than parenting out of fear. Fear of wondering what's going to happen if they don't do this but accepting the child for who they are at this moment, rather than projecting, the doctor they could be or the engineer they might come out as at 24, 25. Let's not worry about that. Let's worry about them now, today, and love them, parent them with the love that we can give them and support them, and everything else will fall into place. Have faith in that. Trust the process.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So how can someone get in touch with you?
So I have a website, www.elevate-ra.com. All my social media contacts are out there. I'm on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn and Instagram. I've also just launched a YouTube channel, but they're all on my website, and you can email me, drop me a line, direct message me on any of those platforms. I'd be more than happy to talk to anyone.
Thank you so much for being here with us. Enjoy your Friday, and I will.
Thursday.
Thursday.
Yes, definitely.